can actually touch and feel and see people out in the community doing public work that benefits the public.
And maybe you guys want to feel this, but a whole lot of, I'm noticing a trend with a lot of the questions. They seem to want definitive answers. And how a bill becomes law is a process. And right now we're in the introduction stages of the bill. Excuse me. I can say we're all working together, right?
Sure. Right.
We're in the beginning stages of it. So if you guys remember, I'm just a bill, just a, you know what I'm saying? Up on Capitol Hill. Well, exactly, Schoolhouse Rock. And it told you the process of how a bill becomes law. So just to give you some idea that they're not going to walk away from us today and then come back next week and tell you that it's everything that we've introduced to you here tonight. But they are getting information from us. We are impacting some of the discussions that they'll have later. But there's a process. And like many of you have stated before, there's another side. We'll agree to it, but we don't want this. So as it goes to committee and they fight about what's going to stay in the bill and what goes out, then it's going to be some time. So it's not a waste of your time being here. And I thank you guys for being here. But, you know, if you guys want to tell them a little bit more about, you know, what goes into, you know, a bill becoming a law, that may, you know, assist, or maybe they got it because they remember Schoolhouse Rock.
Okay, so we have two chambers. We have the House and we have the Senate, right? And we have the governor over here in the administration. Basically, when a bill gets introduced, it gets assigned to a committee. In the House of Representatives, there are 17 committees, and some of those committees even have subcommittees. So the bill gets assigned to a committee. The chairperson of the committee will set a hearing date for the bill. We have not got a hearing date for our bill yet. We probably won't get something until September or October for our first hearing. What happens is the sponsors of the bill give the first testimony in the bill. And then it's up to the committee chairman to make a decision about whether that bill will get a second hearing, a third hearing, and whether it will get voted out of committee. Just because a bill is introduced does not mean it will get voted out of committee. In fact, as I said, most of them don't, to be honest with you. But it gets, let's say the best case scenario happens, it gets voted out of committee. Then the Speaker of the House makes a decision about what bills he's going to put on the floor at any one point. And that's when all 99 members of the House of Representatives will vote on a bill. Sometimes just because a bill gets out of committee doesn't mean it gets put on the floor. It's totally up to the Speaker about what bills get put on the floor. Usually if a bill gets put on the floor, you know it's going to get voted out. It's pretty rare to have a bill put on the floor that the Speaker is going to embarrass someone or not have a vote on it. So once it gets out of the House, then it gets put over. Then it goes over to the Senate, and it goes through the same process. It gets assigned to a committee. The committee has a hearing on it. There's a bunch of hearings on it. They put their stamp on it. They may change it. They may amend it, and that could happen. The same thing in the House. And then it gets put. If it's lucky enough, it'll get put on the floor of the Senate, and the Senate will vote on it. If the Senate makes changes, then those changes have to come back to the House, and we have to either approve those changes, or we have to say we don't like those changes. We're going to go to something called conference committee. The conference committee means that there will be 3 members of the House and 3 members of the Senate who will meet and try to mesh out a compromise on what the bill is. And then usually the compromises are worked out, and then it comes back to each House to vote on, again, on the compromise, the conference committee. Gets voted on, and then it goes to the governor to sign or not sign. 99.9 times out of 100, the governor is going to sign the bill. But I got to tell you, he didn't last month. There was a bill he vetoed, Governor Kasich vetoed, and it was, as much criticism as I have for Governor Kasich, the bill he vetoed was a very good veto. I was glad he did it. It was around Lake Erie and the Great Lakes Compact. The Republicans put this bill out there that was just crazy. That it would have violated this thing called the Great Lakes Compact, which protects Great Lake Erie, and would have allowed 5 million barrels of water a day any company to get a permit to get 5 million barrels of water a day, take it out of Lake Erie and use it for whatever they wanted to use it for. It was a really bad bill. So that's kind of the process: the House, Senate, Governor.
Who started that bill?
It was Grandel.
He's one that left the last time when they
He's the one-
signed it, he held it up.
He's the guy that held it up last time, right?
That guy ought to be shot along with Brent.
I'm not going to advocate violence. I understand the sentiment.
Bill number 5. Bill number
Senate Bill 5.
What is,
Hold on, we got questions coming from the cards, and we're gonna try and keep this in an orderly fashion. We're kind of getting out of hand a little bit. In the interest of time, let's try and stick with the agenda, please.
That's right. This will be sort of a two-pronged question here. It says, is there precedent for how states funded jobs, like there is federal funded jobs? Where does this money come from to fund this bill?
Yeah, precedent. Back in the 30s, in fact, before the federal WPA was created, there were different states that had similar kind of jobs program versions of that. And so there is precedent for it. And, you know, it's not, there's nothing that prohibits it. There's you know, it's, a lot of times what happens, you know, when federal legislation gets passed is because there's been state experiments around things like this. So there's precedent for jobs programs in states. Secondly, how does this get paid for? As I said before, we think there's going to be surplus money. There's going to be money available that is not expended in the budget that was just passed on June 30th. You know, I believe that we should be taxing rich people more, right? I totally believe that we should be taxing the wealthy. I think that it's very important that we do that. I think it's unfair that they're getting away with murder, basically. However, I think that given the Senate Bill 5 fight going on right now, there is a sentiment that says, look, we've got to win Senate Bill 5. Let's not get into discussion around taxes, at least until Senate Bill 5 is out of the way. And for us, when Nikki and I put the bill together, we said, well, there's a surplus revenue anyway. Let's use that as the source of funding for the bill. So that's how the bill will be paid for.
We're going to have time for, I guess, 2 quick questions.
I got an emergency question.
Emergency, go ahead.
If it wouldn't be emergency, I wouldn't bug anybody.
Emergency.
Time is of the essence. There's a car outside, it's a Ford, it's a blue Ford with the lights on. If anybody is in here,
Blue Ford.
when the meeting, it's blue Ford Focus.
That's your,
You forgot your lights on. If you want to turn them on as a courtesy, when this meeting is over, I guarantee you the engine will start. But if you let it go,
It'll start.
okay.
it will start? Okay. You must have that cell battery, the new one.
These are our last 2 questions.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any state senators interested in introducing a similar bill?
Yeah, I think that Senator, I know that I talked to Senator Mike Skindle, who's my senator from Lakewood, and he's interested in that. I don't know if you've talked to anyone down here, but, you know, I think that this is, you know, there's, in the Senate Democratic caucus at least, there's a couple very progressive, I think, senators who would be interested in introducing a similar version. I think it's a good question, and I think we need to and push it on some of those guys. So whoever asked that question, it's something that's, you know, actually just kind of put a little star next to it. It's some work I need to do to follow up in the next couple of weeks. So, yeah.
This will be our last question.
Yep.
Okay. It says these jobs will be split between the 88 counties. Will people be able to go to other counties if there are vacancies and obtain these jobs?
Hey, I already do that now, man.
All right, good question. I haven't thought that far ahead yet, but I know. Look, actually, it's a good question because when we started creating this thing, we wanted to spread it out. We wanted to get all across the state of Ohio. We wanted. I mean, part of this was political. We wanted. rural Republicans to be in support of this as much as urban Democrats, basically, just given the nature of Columbus. But there are some counties that have very low population.